Hotep, peace, salam, salam alaikum, and universal greetings to my people out there. Sturm, Bay, you know what I'm saying, hitting y'all with another video that I felt it was very important to bring this video up. You know what I'm saying? Or do this video. This video is called If You Don't Have What's Considered Nappy Hair, right? And you don't have dark skin, right? And you don't have the dominant traits that will apply that you came from a dominant genetics pool, you are what's considered a mutation, right? I had to do this video because we live in a society from which the standard of beauty is not of the dominant traits of the original people on the planet. You know what I'm saying? But I'm here to clear it up. Is that you don't have this big nose, you don't have this nappy hair, if you don't have this dark hue complexion, then you're what's considered a mutation. You know what I'm saying? And to even go further, a mutt. Right? So, let's go into it by first looking up what is a mutation, because all other phenotypes on the planet are the results. If they don't have the dominant traits of the nappy hair, the what's considered nappy hair, the kinky hair, the big wide nose, the big lips, the dark hue. You don't have that, you are considered a mutation, and you're genetically sick. Let's go into it. First, I want to look up recessive traits. Recessive traits can be carried in a person's genes without appearing in that person. For example, a dark-haired person may have one gene for dark hair, which is dominant. Which is dominant, and one gene for light hair, which is recessive. Right? Now let's look up recessive genes. I've already pre-programmed it, so you ain't gotta wait. Recessive genes is a gene that gets trumped by a dominant gene. For example, your mother's recessive gene, which they try to throw that in, your mother's is not recessive, she has the dominant genes, right? Even though they're talking about how the interaction of genes between your mother and father, how if your father has certain dominant genes, it will trump your mom's recessive gene, and vice versa. That's what they didn't add. They just try to say, oh, your mom's recessive genes. Your moms have dominant genes too that will trump some of your father's recessive genes, okay? Okay. For example, your mom's recessive genes for blue eyes was trumped by your dad's dominant genes for brown eyes. That's how you got stuck with brown eyes. Now they're entering in their psychology on how the standard of beauty is blue-eyed, not brown-eyed, or dark hue in the eyes. But the blue eye is a result of recessiveness. And recessive genes are the result of mutation. Now let's go into mutation. I'm qualifying what I'm saying. I'm not just saying what I'm saying, I'm qualifying it. You feel me? Now anybody can come right behind me and do this research for themselves. Right? Okay. Now, in biology, a mutation is a permanent alteration of the nucleotide sequence of the genome of a organism, virus, or extrachromosomal gene DNA or other genetic elements. Mutations result from damage to the DNA, which is not repaired. Errors in the process of the replication of or for the insertion of or deletion of segments of the DNA by mobile genetic elements. Mutations may or may not produce discernible changes in the observable characteristic phenotype of a organism. Okay, mutations play a part in both normal and abnormal biological processes, including evolution. There go that evolution word, see? Now, this modern day scientific academia, the scientific worldview that we're looking at, that we're reading right now, is coming from a Eurocentric worldview, right? Now, so-called white people, they're really Europeans, but this is coming from their scientific worldview, their perspective on the science, and them breaking it down, right? So they equated mutation with evolution, right? So they're equating something that takes away and delete from what was prior dominant, and they're equating it to something that evolved, right? They're equating mutation with evolution. From my understanding, evolution is it means it well, this is break it down. Evolution means an adaptation, right? It's when the genes can adapt to certain environmental elemental factors, right? Is when the genes can adapt. The genes have the durability. Human genes have the durability to adapt, right? And some people say because of migration of humans and that Y chromosome gene that mutated out of Africa from the out of Africa theory, right? They say that as a result of that Y chromosome migrating out of Africa, the African is responsible for providing the genetic material that populated the planet, which is true, but not in the respect that the Western world has viewed it, right? So what I'm saying is what they're calling evolution, right, is a result of the adaptation of genetics exposed to a different environment. And they have equated that with evolution because of the fact that if their genetics were developed in a climate from which it had to adapt, the genetics had to adapt to it, I guess it could be considered that it was a step up, which evolution denotes a step up, not a step down, right? So, as a result of this adaptation of being in climates from which is not optimum for human life, for life period, it's not the optimum areas for human life, like parts of Europe, right? Like parts of you can even go into the history of Europe and find how there was so much wars based on scarcity of agricultural usage of the land, not only because they didn't know how to use the land, it's because You have to be able to create an environment in Europe to even farm and have sustainable environments for life. You have to create the environment, and the Moors was the ones going over there cultivating the land and actually making it habitable for people to grow and live there. So what I'm saying is, because your genes just happen to be developed in a certain area, right, as a result of migrations of that Y chromosome, and that Y chromosome what they call it, migrating in a certain area and creating these different groups, which is called which is in genetics we talking about haplogroups, right? You talking about haplogroups, groups of people who genetic pool created another group of people, right? You got to study haplogroups, right? But my point is, they're equating mutation with evolution, and evolution is just adaptation to the environment that you're exposed to, that you've been by circumstances exposed to. But my thing is, that's, like I said, it's not the optimum place for your genetics to be developed in. The optimum place to be developed would be so-called Africa, so-called areas from the equator, around the equator, from which is the optimum place to inhabit based on environmental factors. The perfect place to inhabit it be based on the soil is perfect in these areas, right? Abundance of water, right, in these areas. So from where the genetics of the dominant people who provided all the genetic material to create all the mutation, which we call the other phenotypes of the planet, they had developed a dominant trait of genes based on being developed, based on that genetic material being developed in an optimum environment to be developed. So they want to lead you astray and make you believe that because their genes adapted to a certain climate, that's the result of evolution, not making you clear on the fact that evolution is adaptation. It's not necessarily a step up, which they're trying to lead you to believe. Right? And I think I'm going to have to do another video. I went too long on this one. I think I'm going to do another one, but check it out. Go do the research for yourself. If you don't have this nappy hair, this big wide nose, this dark hue, you are what's considered a mutation. You heard what I read about mutations, right? You are the result of recessive genes. Recessive genes are sick genes. They're sick. Peace.